Hi guys, how are things? So we're back with the second instalment of Fuckwittery around the Hellfire Club. We're on the opposite side of the road tonight. We're down at Massy's Woods, and if you can remember where I was telling you about the occurrences that I had the last time, we're on the opposite side of the road. So the Killikee house is over here on the left hand side. So to me, and in my thinking, this is much more sinister than any part of the Hellfire Club, and I've given it a lot of thought and consideration as to why. Firstly, it's 10 to 8 in the evening, and there's far less amount of people here than there would be up in the Hellfire Club. And another thing is it's downhill, so my thinking is for any up and coming Satanist that wants to sacrifice someone, or a psychopath, it's much easier to bring a body downhill than involuntarily downhill than it is uphill. So anyhow, I spend a lot of time in the woods, as you know. Anyone that knows me would know that. If you don't know me now, you do know it. I spend a lot of time in the woods, always did, and I find these woods pretty freaky, and I never feel uneasy in the woods, never. It never happens, but I do find these woods uneasy, and I don't know why. But there's something about Massy's Woods anyhow. I think it's a little bit freaky. We walk down along anyhow, and really tonight it's not about me, it's about Natalie. Natalie wants to give you her experience when we get down to what used to be the mill, and she'll explain that to you. The thing about it is, and I suppose I want to tell you a bit about us. We're paranormal investigators. Well, I'm kind of interested in anything that's abnormal. Doesn't matter whether it's energies, it doesn't matter if it's UFOs, cryptozoology. I have a particular penchant for psychopaths and serial killers, but it doesn't really matter. As long as it's not normal, I like it. If it's abnormal, it's my bag. I hate normality so much that if I see a normal person, I don't want them to get too close to me, just in case I catch that shit off them, because that's a really, really horrible disease to catch, normality. So we're going to walk on down. I'd say it probably takes about 5 minutes to get to where we want to talk to you about. And in the meantime, I suppose I'll tell you what we've been up to since last Friday. Now, it's next Friday that you're watching the video, but it's really only Monday night in the real world. And we've been, over the weekend, I was out on a bike run. We were doing a bike run for charity, for mental health awareness and that kind of stuff. And I hope you guys all had a good weekend and got up to some good stuff. But the thinking behind this channel is to be honest with it, and what you see is what you get. You'll always get that with me, I guarantee you that. And I suppose maybe not to be too serious about investigating paranormal, or don't be too serious about anything in life, because there's no one getting out of here alive, and try and have a bit of a laugh. The one thing that I did notice, and I'm quite the skeptic when it comes to paranormal investigating. Natalie would be quite sensitive, but I'm quite skeptical about a lot of stuff. But that said, and I always said this before, that doesn't make me a cynic. I'm not a cynic, but if I hear something on the stairs or in a doorway, I won't write that down as being a paranormal occurrence unless I actually get the opportunity to go and investigate it. Like, I mean, there could be a rat on the step, and there's too many people jump to conclusions because, because they really want it to be paranormal so badly that they're prepared to not truly and fairly investigate occurrences, or so-called occurrences. And in essence, they're not really doing the industry a great service either. And that's just my thoughts on it.
There's a bit of pareidolia. Looks like a face on the tree.
Well, yeah, that's a lot to do with the drugs you're taking, I think. But anyhow, so I don't know, I lost my train of thought there altogether. What was I saying anyhow? What was I saying?
Just that, you know, every little creak and noise that you hear, don't put it down to it being paranormal.
Well, yeah. So do your best to debunk things, because in essence, if it's truthful and it's genuine, no matter how much you try to debunk it, it'll stand up. But if you don't do that, that won't happen. So, like, that's just my thoughts on it. I'm not really big on using a whole bunch of equipment either. You know, I feel like, obviously, me being a photographer, and I suppose I was an investigative photojournalist for a large number of years, a couple of decades actually, and I worked with provincial papers, national papers, and ultimately Sunday papers, working on some fairly large kind of criminal exposés and stuff like that. I have it in my nature to investigate situations, and maybe some people wouldn't have that kind of schooling that I would have got working with newspapers and stuff like that over a number of decades. And that kind of who, what, where, when and why kind of thing always creeps into my mind when we go to do an investigation, or when we're doing private investigations as well. But that's not to say you can't have a laugh while you're doing it, you know, and I think that's very, very important. And I remember telling a number of people one night that I genuinely believe that in an investigation that when people are cheerful and jocular, that probably the inclination of a particular energy reaching out to make contact with you is probably much higher. At the end of the day, they don't, like, if I was an energy and I passed on, like, I see energies as, you know, when I'm done with this vehicle that I call this body, I'm going to leave it, my energy will leave it and move on to something else. What that something else is, what my next vehicle is going to be, I don't know. But I do know that if there's a bunch of miserable people being really miserable, standing around what would look to an energy like a K2 looks like a little Christmas tree or something like that, or REM pods, and they're being super serious, I go, oh, man, I don't really want to have anything to do with them. They're really, really boring, and, you know, I had enough of that in life, dealing with boring people. I'm not coming back now to deal with this. So if I walk by and there are people having a laugh and, you know, being jocular, you kind of go, well, I wonder what's going on there, and you might be more interested in what they're getting up to, and curiosity might get the better of you. Now,
So house private, Shane.
yeah,
You know, people might want to know what happens when we go to somebody's home. Like, you know, the questions and like the list of questions that we go through to.
yeah, well, like, as you know yourself, Natalie, I don't have a set list of questions that we go through. I play each case on its own sort of strengths, but obviously there's a couple of things that are kind of guaranteed that you're going to end up asking. You're going to ask somebody, like, I mean, what kind of are they on medication, and if so, what kind of medication they are. Is it some sort of, are they taking psychotropics or whatever? And because we have to get to the bottom of these things, and we're trying to help the individual, and quite often you'll find with a situation like that, that there's some sort of bad vibrations or bad energies in the house, whether they're causing them themselves, or they're at a point where they're arguing with their partners, spouse, daughters, sons, you know, whatever, and maybe there's teenagers in the house where they have huge hormonal imbalances, which creates a different energy path then as well. Now, none of this is proven or disproven. But it's my thought on the situation. And, like, I mean, we know that energy is a thing, and that thing can either be created or destroyed. So energy is all around us, you know. So, like, I mean, I don't buy into the necessarily poltergeist type thing, or it's a ghost, or it's this or it's that. I just think it's energy, okay? And we are displacing a certain type of energy, and, you know, if that energy that we're displacing is negative, well, we can only expect a negative output from this. We'd also like to thank anyone that has watched the video in the last week and who has shared it and all that. You know, we're very, very grateful for that. And you know, for the people that didn't bother sharing it and didn't bother liking it, but still came and had a little bit of a look and a watch, don't be surprised if you wake up some morning and find a crap in your slippers, okay? Yeah. So, we'll get back in a few minutes. We're making our way down to the mill, and then Natalie will tell you all about what went on down here. Okay, guys. So guys, since I was talking to you last, we're about a quarter of a mile further down into Massy's woods. We're approaching the area now that brings us across the bridge here into the sawmill, and definitely I think this is where the energy in this woods changes from this point on. And so come with us now, we're going to go up to the sawmill. So guys, this is what's left of this derelict, dilapidated sawmill, and Natalie is going to tell you. There's Natalie there. Say hello, Natalie.
Hi guys.
So Natalie's going to tell us about her experience here. In actual fact, before Natalie even starts, 2 occasions before we came up here. So it was kind of a third time lucky that we actually came down here. The first time we came up on the bike, and you just didn't feel like coming in that night, sure you didn't?
No.
And then, sorry?
No, there was like this coat just hanging on the stump outside, and I just got like this really, really weird feeling, like a feeling of dread, just not to go in.
Yeah, and then we came up then maybe about a week later or so in the car that night, and we just didn't want to come in that night at all. That was the night that you really just got a horrible feeling, didn't you? And we went up and parked up at the car park and took a few photographs.
Like that never happens to me.
No, and
Like, you're always dying to come in here,
yeah,
you know.
and if you hear that noise in the background, I think the aliens are actually landing in the far field up by the Hellfire. But anyhow, on the third time we did come up, didn't we? And like, bearing in mind we'd been in loads and loads of times, and the feeling is never good in here, is it? Around this particular area.
You always feel like you're being watched or something, you know. I think it's because of this. You can't really see. And it must be dark as well. You
Yeah.
always think there's something behind you.
Yeah.
This particular night that we came in, like we were doing call-outs, and we had the task cam running, and we had the PSB 11X was going, and we were just doing call-outs, and you just walked by me, and I just started, this rage was just kind of started to build up, and I started getting like palpitations.
Yeah.
Actually, just there a few seconds ago, I started getting those palpitations again.
Okay.
I mean, that wouldn't be a thing on a daily basis for me or anything like that.
So there either is something really paranormal here, or if you have arrhythmia, one or the other.
Yeah, but it's only when I come here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so you walked by and you said something, and I just like got the rage, and I don't know, just ended up, I walked over here, and I just had to slide down the wall. I landed on my butt. I just couldn't get up, like, I don't know what it was, but it was like all the energy kind of just left me, but like the brain was still normal.
Okay. Well then that was definitely an abnormal night for you.
No, but it was like just all the energy just went, and it was like some mad rage or something. But I ended up just on the ground there,
Yeah.
and it took me about, I'd say, 10 minutes.
And did you find that rage hard to deal with?
Well, it wasn't me, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Because I have to deal with that every single day of my life. That internal rage. No, but seriously, It is a bit of a creepy place, but I generally like creepy places. But we have brought people here before, and they've kind of really got the heebie-jeebies out of here. And we've brought some fairly seasoned investigators here, and they've got the the heebie-jeebies here. So there's definitely something about it, I think. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be known for being a sensitive or a psychic or anything like that, and hopefully I don't fall over a stone now while I'm walking backwards and make an absolute gobshite of myself. But if I do, at least you won't see.
But it's like the way we like to kind of do the call outs. We don't really do call outs that much. We kind of just talk and
Well,
like keep the recorder going and
yeah,
talk about stuff that might have happened in wherever.
yeah,
Like, remember that night Rosemary was with us from Puka Paranormal?
yeah,
We were over in the Hellfire and you were talking about boxing.
yeah. Funny that now. What was the chances of that I'd start talking about boxing?
And the K2, like, it was going ballistic. It started going ballistic.
Hmm.
But really, what you were talking about was like the men that would have been there. They like to gamble.
Yeah, and bare knuckle boxing would have been something that people would have liked to gamble on, and I'm sure it's something that they would have facilitated up in the Hellfire Club. You could see that, you could imagine that happening. Like, I mean, if you think of the Hellfire Club and you go up there, you think of scenarios something like an old Sherlock Holmes movie or something like that. And quite often if you watch any kind of productions of those type of films in that era, you will see some sort of bare knuckle boxing, or at least early Queensberry rules boxing, where it's kind of man on man, and that's that was par for the course in the time, like. The UFO is still landing, so we don't know what's going on there. I hope you can hear us. If not, I hope you can lip read. But yeah, so we really can't tell you much more about here.
Well, further on up, we had another little experience.
Yeah, and tell us about that now.
Well, you want to go up?
Yeah, okay, we'll head up. Right, guys, so just to point, you can just see where my finger's going over that way. That's where we're coming from, the sawmill. Okay, and we're heading down now towards the old ruins here. Just trying to give you an idea, if you haven't been up here and you don't have to bother wasting 227 calories walking up and down, you can get a look at it. It's a nice old spot, and you can tell that it was a mistake with all these rhododendron bushes that have been planted. They were a club that was brought in to facilitate the capture of poachers. I know all about poachers, I've told you this before. So basically, they grow very, very thick and dense, and they twist and turn rhododendrons like snakes, as you can see there. And basically it's very difficult for a poacher to run away. And of course they would have used the main dog for capturing poachers at the time was a bull mastiff. And of course it's very difficult for me to say that, because I think in my DNA a long line of poachers, and plus many of them felt the clasp of the muzzle of a bull mastiff. Anyhow, that's probably a useless bit of information if you ever end up on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Does that even still run now? I don't know. But anyhow, there you have it. So we're going to come back to you now when we get down to the ruins, okay? Guys, hurry up, would you? Come on, we're nearly there. It's just around the corner. So guys, we're just arriving down here now at the ruins, and you can see what we've got here. It's an archaeological site, an ancient Irish ritual that was carried out here. It's called knacker drinking. I may have partaken in that in the past myself. So we're just moving through. Natalie's waiting here. You can still hear the UFOs in the distance. So Look who we should find here. Oh, hello Natalie, how are you? Funny that you'd be here. So, are you going to tell us a bit about this place? Because I don't know anything.
Here you can see like there's ruins of the glass house. So Luke White that bought the land off it would have been like Catherine Connolly. She would have been William Connolly's wife. So William had died in 1729 and
But what did he have for breakfast that morning? That's what we all want to know.
so he would have died in 1729. So I mean Catherine Connolly, yeah, her family then would have sold this land to Luke White.
Okay.
And he bought it like in 1800 and he had the house built by 1808.
Okay.
And he employed for the gardens, he employed a guy called Nevin. That was the head gardener. He looked after the botanical gardens in Dublin.
Okay.
Just give you
Yeah.
an inkling for like the amount of money this guy would have had.
So this must have been pretty. It's fair to assume then that Nevin was doing more than a little bit of weeding and pulling a few groundsel.
They were saying that there was some kind of a rumour going around that he had won like 20,000 on the lottery. And he was also a bookkeeper as well, so he had that plenty of money.
Okay.
A bookmaker, sorry.
Oh, a bookmaker, a bookie.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was his name? Pat
And there you
Toolan.
go. That's the kind of over in the Hellfire.
So there's a link with gambling.
Yes.
There you go. And maybe other sordid debauchery.
Made that kind of link today. But yeah, so anyway, the house, there's nothing left of the house now. The Massy's, it was Hugh Massy would have been the last Massy to own the house. But
Okay.
he had gotten into like financial difficulty. Well, the financial difficulty came from the generations before.
Gambling, I bet.
And mad parties and stuff like that.
Okay. He sounded like a good guy then, really.
Yeah, they'd have a lot of like shooting parties.
Oh,
And
I'm there already.
that kind of thing. And they'd have a lot of servants, gardeners. Yeah. So, and the house as well. You know, they would have gotten monuments and fountains and stuff like that, you know.
There you go. Downtown Abbey.
Flashy.
Right.
Flashy.
So tell us, what I'm really more interested in is what the fuck happened here that night when we had the floor.
Yeah, so.
I'm going to pan across here, guys, and I'm going to explain to you.
Serious, I have the
Okay.
glasses on.
Heavy shit going down here now, guys. Okay. So we were looking out this way and we were using the floor, the thermal imaging thing. So if you're not familiar with that, if you go on a paranormal investigation, any woman that gets her hand on it thinks she's Yvette Fielding, and any man that gets his hand on it thinks he's actually hunting Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Predator, okay?
Yeah, so I think something was lighting up here anyway. But we were only kind of finding our feet with the floor.
Yeah,
And it
and
was
we were back almost with our backs to the wall over here,
Yeah,
where we started this conversation,
and this piece of rock just was lighting up and we were like, why is that lighting up? But
which was beyond here, down in the back of the bushes there.
yeah, and I think this was lighting up, something was lighting up here anyway. But
Yeah.
it was because the heat, the sun of the day.
Yeah, there was a piece of granite, it's not here anymore, but there was a piece of granite just about there. And I investigated it, but yeah, Natalie's right. Basically, it had absorbed the thermal energy of the day, and it was re-emitting it, and we were picking it up on the floor. But then we came across something out here in the back. Was very predator-like. I followed it anyhow to the very point I was pinpointed by Natalie using the floor to where it was, but I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it was like two
Way back
two bright lights. It looked like two eyes, but it wasn't torches.
beyond this corner. I couldn't really go much further after here. But I was told, yeah, you're at it now, and it was nothing. Now, that said, I'm not saying that this is paranormal, because one, the last time I checked, I don't have a PhD in geophysics or geology, so I don't know what stones or brickwork here could be absorbing, old stones could be absorbing that thermal energy and re-emitting it. I don't know. So there's no point in bullshitting and telling you it was paranormal, but it was a bit fucking weird anyhow. So that's all I can tell you about that. Guys, we haven't really got much more to tell you about Massy's.
Actually, I remembered
Natalie
something.
does. I don't.
No, I remembered one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Forgot to say, when we were down at the sawmill,
Yeah.
one of the nights, this is like about 2 years ago, we picked up a voice on the Tascam, but we didn't hear it at the
Yeah.
time. It wasn't a DVP,
And what
it was
did it
just an
say?
EVP. It says, what was it now? Yeah, it said, what is
What
it?
is it?
And it went like, what is it? And the two of us said that it sounds like it's not from this realm, like kind of a
Yeah.
goblin-y type
Yeah,
voice.
it was very
What is it?
very like,
Witchy or, something.
like something like
Yeah.
that anyhow. It was 3-year-old or something like that. Some sort of a little imp like that.
Oh. So,
Yeah, and really I've nothing more to tell you about Massy's Woods, and Natalie probably has more to tell you, and then more to tell you, and then more to tell you. And it'll be like the Titanic, because Natalie has a lot of memories from here. I, on the other hand, forget stuff. Unless it's really, really significant, I forget it when I leave, and that's it. But I don't forget, the couple of nights we came up here that you just didn't want to come in. And I don't forget the night, the way you responded in such a way that was very unlike you. And like, I mean, you've been on some, we've been here dozens of times, and you had been to some pretty scary private cases and
haunted
haunted
castles.
castles and stuff like that, and never got a reaction like that before. So guys, that's it. We're over and out. And if you're good and you keep liking and you keep subscribing and you keep sharing, we might come back to you next week. And if we're not, okay, be careful putting your foot in the slipper tomorrow morning. See you later, guys, and happy Friday the 13th, because one of these Fridays it is going to be Friday the 13th.